My name is Pamela Still, and today I'm interviewing Arlene Koser. We're doing an oral history of people from Mount Holly Springs to paint a picture of what life was like in Mount Holly Springs. So, Arlene, as a kid, you belonged to the Holly Gang. Can you explain who they were and some of the things that you did?
Okay. There were a group of us that got together, all girls, and being that we seemed to all go together, we became the gang. So that was the Holly Gang, or the Hollyites, as many of our school students had called us. But we seemed to do everything together. We went to different friends' houses for parties. Everywhere we went together. And the Holly girls started a mini ha-ha club, we just all loved Indians. So one day we just came up with this idea. We were going to put our feathers on and dance around Teddy's big ugly furnace in the basement and form the mini ha-ha club. We also, one of our girls was nominated to be the Great Medicine Man. And we decided years later that we should have named her the Great Medicine Woman, but instead she became the Great Medicine Man. But we did everything together. We went in as the mini ha-has, we went in parades, of course, as in our Indian outfits. And that was kind of the Holly Gang, because we all went together everywhere.
So you talked about a particular place that you met for your meetings. Could you explain that?
Are you talking about the drugstore, maybe?
The goosery.
The goosery, of course. This was at Teddy's house, and there was a room right outside of Father Tishy's office, and we named it the goosery. And it came about because Inga Lilia was an exchange student living with the Tishys, and she called Mrs. Tishy Mother Goose, which in turn made Ted Tishy Father Goose. And then there was this little room, which happened to be called the goosery. Now, we don't know why anything was special about that room, but it just seemed to go along with Mr. and Mrs. Tishy. And that was the goosery. Yes.
So you girls still get together. Do you reflect back on some of the things that you did?
Oh, my goodness, yes. We have the Holly girls that meet twice a year, and quite a few of the mini ha-has still are in that group. But it's all the girls from Mount Holly, older, younger, and we get together, like you said, twice a year in Carlisle or in Mount Holly at one of the restaurants. And we go back over and remember all these good times. So nothing's ever forgotten.
So one of the things that you talked about to me was when the gang got together, there was an experience that happened in the cemetery. Could you talk about that?
Indeed. That goes back to Halloween. And every Halloween we would go up to the cemetery in Mount Holly and scare each other, which was silly because we all knew who was there. So, but anyhow, it just happened to be this one year. It was the same year that they had destroyed a lot of the tombstones and things here in Carlisle at the Molly Pitcher Cemetery. And the gang was up in the cemetery scaring each other. And two cars came up through the gates. One happens to be Tex Storzinger, the town cop. The second one was a state police car. And we, of course, were scared. A little more than we were scaring each other. And we all took off and ran from one end of Mount Holly to the other end, through people's yards, over hedges. And Lois Meals, one of the girls, lost a scarf somewhere in town. The next day, they came into the drugstore, and we were all in there and talking about the night before. And Tex Storzinger, town cop, comes in the door and he says, "Oh, I just found this scarf laying outside the door here. Did anyone lose this?" We, of course, knew where that scarf came from, and we knew that Tex was trying to get us, and we said, "It doesn't belong to any of us." So that was just one of our things. And I think eventually, I think we did tell Tex, but not for a while.
Now, your gang also did a lot of good for the town, and you helped with the Fireman's Fair quite often.
Right, that was a lot of fun also. It would start out in the morning. They would take the fire trucks out of the firehouse, and the young girls would start husking corn, which was donated by all the farmers out around Mount Holly. So we would husk corn. Later on, if you were good with a knife, and they could tell that real quick, you were allowed to cut the corn off the cob and then get that ready for the ladies then to make the soup, the chicken corn soup, which was the big thing at the fair. And then also in the afternoons, we would go out to the neighbors and all around Mount Holly, out in the country. I don't know how many miles we went, but collecting cakes and pies, and would bring them back then for the desserts and also for the cakewalks. So, yeah, we just helped in any way we can. And the big thing, of course, was, I think, the nickel pitch, it was called. And I don't know if they still have them at all, but you'd go home with maybe a glass and an ashtray and nobody smoked. But you got that at the nickel pitch. But that was also a fun time for us all.
So you also helped your dad every so often. He was a firefighter, and what would you do to help him out?
Well, I don't know if I saw it on television or just what, but it seemed like every fireman had to have his pants laying on the floor, ready to throw their feet into it when a fire siren went off. And I loved to go to fires with my dad. And beside my bed was always my pants ready to be pulled on, and when the fire siren would go off, I'd holler, "Dad, I'm ready," and off we go. Yeah. Also helped, I remember a forest fire up in Upper Holly, and was allowed to go out and help put out the hot spots and things. And I don't believe that's allowed anymore. In fact, I don't believe a lot of the things that I did as a child were allowed anymore.
But you also worked at Doc Snyder's drugstore. Can you talk about that?
Oh my, yes. Doc Snyder's drugstore was just it was the meeting place for everybody in Mount Holly, I believe. I think I was one of the original soda jerks. And everybody came in to see Doc Snyder. I remember the older gentlemen in town would do their daily walks, and they'd come up to the drugstore for the news, and I don't know if it was from the newspaper or if it was the news from Doc Snyder, but Doc had his booth, and everybody seemed to congregate to his booth. And then, of course, all the kids would come in for their nickel Coke. And we would decide then what we were going to do for the week or what we were going to do that day. So it was a place of congregation. And then you had the kids that would come in, and they'd put their little hands out, with the little pennies in, and they'd say, "How many pieces of penny candy can I get with this?" So you'd get the little brown bags out, and then they'd get down on the floor and look through the glass, and they'd say, "Now, can I get this?" And of course, everything was a penny. Some of the candies, though, you could get 2 or 3 pieces for a penny. So it was a fun time, and their faces were just, beaming from ear to ear because they were getting their nickel or their penny candy, which was a delight to all of us. Yeah.
So your job as a soda jerk, you were still in high school at the time, is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes. I worked there during high school, and then when I went to college, I came back and worked on the weekends then. But yeah, that was just a highlight, was working with, and Doc Snyder was just one in a million. He was a special guy, and we had different people that would even come out from Carlisle. Some of the business people would come out to Doc Snyder's on the weekend. So it wasn't just, the people in Mount Holly. They all knew Doc Snyder. And I know there was one couple that came out, and he was a businessman from here in Carlisle. And they had a farm out on the Holly Pike. And when they'd come in, we got to be very good friends. And I had said to him, I'm going to live in your house one day. I really love that place. And they invited me to their home for dinner one evening. And so it was that kind of thing, just special people, and just cared about the kids too. Yeah.
Now, just to
Yes.
get an idea of what the inside of Doc Snyder's look like, there's a Mr. Gobin's Pharmacy has a soda fountain presently, and it has a marble countertop, and I understand that came from Doc Snyder's. Is that your recollection?
I didn't know that, but yeah, it was a black marble top on the soda fountain. Yeah, booze back the side of the thing, and the marble countertop. No, I'm very thrilled to know that.
Yeah. So people congregated there, young and old.
Yes, yes.
So you have a collection of stories written by one of the many Ha-Ha girls, Lois Mills. Can you share with us what these stories are?
Lois had a fabulous memory, and she wrote all these stories of things that when we were growing up, things that helped me remember. And could I share one about the ore hole? In the summer, winter, spring, fall, it didn't matter when it was. We all went up through the park, and one of the places was the ore hole, and she wrote a little bit about the ore hole, and I can't begin to tell you about it, so I'd like to read it to you.
Certainly.
It says, Mount Holly was divided into two sections, Holly the town and Upper Holly, a handful of houses along a wide branched road just past the railroad tracks on Route 11 south. I could never understand why this area was called Upper Holly, because one traveled south, not north, to reach it. The left branch of the Y snaked up and down the foothills of the Appalachians. The direction was known as the road over the mountain. We traveled it to Peter's Orchard, acres and acres of fruit trees in Adams County. The right branch along the mountains dotted with summer cabins led to Laurel Lake and Pine Grove Furnace, which we also used a lot when we were growing up. Okay, so about a half mile along the right branch, behind homes of two friends, Ann Foster and Milton Jennings, was an abandoned ore hole. This crater, filled with mountain water, very cold mountain water, was one of many remnants of iron ore mining in the area. My friends and I spent many a hot summer day swinging out over the water on a rope fastened to a thick tree limb, letting go to splash into the bracing water for a swim. There was no beach. The ore hole was surrounded entirely by trees. One area was cleared so that we could sit on our towels over the forest floor or on a fallen tree trunk. When not around the water or in the water, we lolled about talking, laughing, and listening to the latest popular songs on the ever-present portable radio. Sometimes we even rode our bicycles to Upper Holly and walked a short distance on a dirt path to the ore hole. Other times we either rode our bikes or hiked through the old Holly Park, just past Diddy Wise's gas station, the mile or so to the dam. There we left our bicycles and crossed over the top of the dam. Then another short hop, and we were there. when the winter temperatures dropped enough to freeze standing water, the old ore hole became one of our ice skating rinks. When it was covered with ice, we piled high dry twigs and leaves over the edge of the ice for a bonfire to keep us warm. When we sat on our towels during the summer when swimming, we sat on logs near the bonfire in the winter. The trek to the ore hole through the trees was breathtaking in the autumn when the leaves were ablaze with color before they dropped. The spring trip was equally refreshing as the trees budded and then greened with the promise of warm weather. Growing up, my friends and I spent many hours at the ore hole and the beautiful wooded area of the Holly Park and Dam. The trip to the ore hole was always a memorable season of the year. And that was her rendition of the ore hole, which we did spend many hours at.
And so your friend took memories that you shared and wrote them, and they're distributed among the girls now.
That's right. There's several of us that have stories and just different things of her childhood, and then lots of things that were memories of hers with just her family. But she wrote this all down, and I'm sorry to say that Lois isn't with us anymore. She passed away last year. But we still have the memories and these beautiful stories that she's written.
So you ladies get together on a yearly basis now, and I'm sure you recollect.
Right. The Holly girls meet twice a year, usually in May and September, either at a restaurant in Carlisle or in Mount Holly now. And like I said before, we go over these memories, and everybody, brings pictures. And then we sit there and try to decide now exactly who was that. And, oh, didn't she change? Oh, look at this, So we have a fun time when we get together. And all but one of the mini ha-has is still there. Mm-hmm.
So another thing that you were involved in as a teenager was the Civil Defense Group.
Oh,
And
yes.
I understand you have a picture of that, and can you explain?
I do. This was in the 50s, and if everyone remembers, we had, what was it? The nation was afraid they were going to be the atom bomb. My mind is not clear on that completely. But anyhow, we had the civil defense groups. And again, it was the young and the old. Everyone had their position that they held. And
Could you point out where you are?
I am right here.
Okay, and were the other mini ha-has in that group as well?
Yes, we had a number of them. I believe this was a mini ha-ha. There's a mini ha-ha there. That might have been in this group.
And so what did your group do?
Okay. Needless to say, those in white, we were the nursing group, or actually, there wasn't one of us that was old enough to be a nurse, but we were there to help the nurses. Everyone had an armband, so when the alarm went off, the siren went off in town, everyone put their armbands on and went to their position in the town. There were men, stationed at different places in the town, and we went through, we had different mock raids, and we would get together and make sure that we were doing what we were supposed to do in case there was an attack on our country. Yeah.
Was it a frightening time for you?
No, I don't remember it as being frightening. Because in growing up when I was much younger and lived in a different town was probably during the 40s when we had the air raids and the blackouts. And I could remember sitting on the windows when all the lights were turned off in the towns. And it wasn't a scared time for me. Nor was this. I had a job to do, and we did it. So that's what you were thinking about.
And was there a lot of solidarity with everybody, all hands on deck helping?
Yes, and here again, you know, my mother and father are on this picture. And just different people from the town, school teachers, nurses, and gas station attendants. It was just everybody. And just because you were younger, you had a job to do, and they didn't look down on you. It was a good time.
So you left Mount Holly Springs to go to college, but you feel very tied to the people. Can you explain, looking back, how you reflect on that growing up time in Mount Holly?
It was a special time. I got to know just about everyone. You could walk down Baltimore Avenue, down Chestnut Street, and you knew everybody. And everybody talked to everybody. You know, the older people loved to talk to us, and we loved to talk to the older people. It was just such a special time. I don't think nowadays, I don't know, I might be wrong, but I don't know if the young kids get to do that. You were respected by the older people.
And you lived on Mountain Street, so
yes.
Can you explain why that was more challenging for you?
I lived on Mountain Street, back against the mountain. And, of course, I had to walk to Doc Snyder's drugstore. And that was always quite a trek to go over town. Went past the railroad station, and then there was the tomato cannery with the stinky, smelly pit on the one side of the road that you had to walk by. Went by Blau Wagner's factory, which was a pajama factory, and my dad managed that at a time. Then past the homes of people, crossed the Camelback Bridge, and then past the big hedges around the mansion, the Matlin Mansion. And you always had to leave for work early in the morning because there would be people outside, and you'd have to talk to all of them on your way, you know, over there again. It was that everyone wanted to know how you were doing, and how, you know, we wanted to know how they were doing. And it was just that special hometown closeness.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Any other stories that we've missed?
Oh,
the mini hot-hogs, they're still a close-knit group to you.
Yes, yes. And we used to go in all the parades and, of course, dress up. I might have already mentioned that. But everyone, we had such good families, and it just was, it was special because everybody cared about everybody else. And I think that's the one thing that stood out to me, that people really cared. And that'll always be special to me. Yeah.
Well, Arlene, really appreciate this interview with you, and you've painted such a wonderful picture of Mount Holly Springs and the growing up.
I loved
and
it.
we really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.